Just 2 minutes to go. So hopefully you've got your gin and tonic, cup of tea with you ready. Well, we've had Karin from Canada, and it's definitely a cup of tea in Canada because it's not even quite 9 a.m. in the morning. However, on probably the other side of the pond, we've got Anne, who says she's having a glass of wine. So there we go.
I've got a glass of squash.
There we go. Right, brilliant. We'll make a start then now. So hello, everyone, again, and welcome back to another Arty class hosted by Shopkeep Arty, the shop platform used by artists and budding creatives to make it super easy to sell whatever they want online. Visit our website on YouTube or our YouTube channel. You can see some videos all about us on there too. For those watching for the first time, be it on this interactive webinar or live on YouTube, our free weekly Arty classes feature award-winning artists and are designed for all ages, providing a creative escape 2 times a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday at 2 o'clock UK time. That makes it easy for you to remember each week. If you do need to register for each interactive webinar, and you can do this by visiting shopkeeparty.com/Arty classes. I'll just share my screen. I do that from time to time just to make it easy for you, so you know, because we do get quite a few questions about this each week, but literally shopkeeparty.com. I've come to the website. You click on Arty classes, or you can find it in the menu. If you want to watch a video all about it, there's some videos there, and you can literally see all the different upcoming classes that you can join, either the free Arty classes, which are 45 minutes, or you can jump into a more immersive class, or what we call a master class at the moment, with these. There's also a mystery class coming up soon on Tuesday the 18th. John Devitt next week looks really fascinating, and we've got Steffi doing that. There's lots and lots of different things, and obviously Liz Chatterton's masterclass coming up there too. So lots and lots of different things that you can do, and if you want to watch any previous Arty class videos, you can access it through that button, and also the masterclasses videos are through that button. So hopefully that helps clear up any confusion. So with all the support we receive from our patrons, we are continually hunting out the best artists from around the world to share them with you for almost an hour live and totally free. If you enjoy it, you can then again get the chance to join them at a later date, as you saw there, for an exclusive 2 to 3 hour masterclass where they share many more tips and techniques with you and that can really help make you a better artist. And it's a really fun afternoon as well, or morning, depending on where you're living. Arty classes are great, but our master classes, and actually we're wondering whether the word masterclass is the right word for it, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to alienate people. If they're starting to get into art and they're really enjoying it, we don't want people to think that it's just for professionals, that only professionals can join these masterclasses. It's really open to anyone. It's like an Arty class, but rather than 45 minutes, it can be up to about 3 hours. So you develop a lot more skills, you have a lot more time, there's less people, it's a lot more sort of relaxing. So I'm going to actually I'm seeing getting lots of comments about what people are drinking, so that's Susie in Australia, hello, and a glass of white wine in France at 35 degrees centigrade, I'd like to add. So that sounds, oh boy, that sounds pretty hot. So I've actually got a little poll which I'm going to just open. It'd be really great to have a little bit of feedback from those that are watching. So it's all about the name of our masterclasses. We really love the name Arty classes, but the masterclasses, as I said before, we don't want to alienate people. So we've come up with a few suggestions, and it'd be great if you could just tick which ones you like, just as a little bit of feedback right now. So let me just launch that poll and you can see it. So if you want to stick with masterclass, if you think masterclass sounds great, do that. You can select whichever ones you like the sound of. We thought Arty Plus, just the symbol plus, might be quite good. Arty Extra, Arty Party, we thought might be quite a nice sort of informal, have some fun time. Arty Retreat. So whatever you feel is the right sort of, just give it a bit of a few minutes, because it'd be really useful for us just to get a sense of what you feel is the right. So if we were holding something like that, you could join the Arty retreat, or join Arty Plus, or come and have an Arty party, or anyway, have a little bit of think on that. So while you're doing that and considering your options, I'll continue a little bit. The great thing about this, the Arty retreat, Arty Max, Arty Plus, Arty Extra, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that it is really great value, because you do end up spending 2 to 3 hours. It works out at less than £15 an hour, and you know, you pick up all these skills and you have a really great, almost mini masterpiece to show at the end of it, which is great. This week, we're welcoming back a popular annual artist, Liz, and watercolorist Liz Chatterton, who's going to be exploring watercolor textures with you. So it's going to be real fun, just a melting pot of different ideas and techniques. As always, Liz and I can't see or hear you. Ideally, type in your question in the Q&A section and we'll get to it when ready. If you want to ask a question direct, you can press the little hand icon and I can see that and then invite you in to ask a question. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. There's a little bit of a delay between YouTube and our live webinar, but if you want to ask any questions on YouTube, just type it in the bottom and I can get to that and answer that, or ask Liz for you. And finally, we'll stop around halfway, take a short break, and we'll ask Liz to outline her 2 to 3 hour masterclass, Arty Extra, whatever thing. Now, actually, it appears that quite a lot of you think that masterclass seems to be a good choice. There's going to be an element of that where, because you're used to it, but also Arty Extra has come out quite strong as well. So that's really great feedback. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that. So without further ado, we'll hand over to Liz now and see what is in store for our Arty class today. Hello, Liz.
Hello, everybody. Hi, thank you ever so much for inviting me back. And lovely that there are people. I'm quite envious of the glass of wine in France. That sounds quite nice, but quite hot. So
there seems to be an awful lot of people drinking alcohol all around the world.
Well, I'm just getting rid of that. I have got a lovely glass of squash. There you go. Summer fruit squash. How nice. So anyway, this afternoon, what I thought would be lovely to do is to explore some, well, I call it textures. And of course, just as I was setting up and getting ready to come on, I thought, oh, I know exactly what I should call this session. Tips, what was that? Yeah, tips, tricks and techniques. Wouldn't that have been nice? All those T's for Arty. And that occurred to me about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, so. Why didn't we think of that before? I know. I love joining the dots with the T's.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we're going to do, is some tips, tricks and techniques. And the idea is, and I'm going to, well, hold it up because you've got my face there. We'll come away with a sheet at the end of this session with lots of different marks that are nothing to do with brushes, that next time you're painting that you want a shortcut, or you are just a bit bored with that particular area and you want something different, you can do. You may have already done this, so if you want to challenge yourself, I hope you can see that you could, rather than doing little circles, actually make them into shapes if you're feeling like a challenge this afternoon. I'm not feeling like a challenge, so I'm going to do circles. So that's what we're going to do. As John said, we're going to stop half time. If you haven't got some of the bits that I'm using, don't worry, just take a note, and of course you can do it afterwards. And the other thing is, I would take notes, because it's all very well thinking, oh yeah, I'll remember. We're going to go through maybe 15 different possibilities. And trust me, you probably won't remember. The other thing is to take notes, because if you do it and you suddenly think, oh, that'd be perfect for whatever it is, it's quite nice to just capture that sort of thought. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to just start with a little bit of a warning, because just because you can do these techniques doesn't mean you should. I have seen people, after they've done a session with me like this, try to use all 15 techniques in one painting, and it just looks a bit like a dog's dinner. So only use these techniques when they're going to bring something to the party, to your painting, and it's not going to look like a cliche. I've got a little message on my screen, so I'm getting rid of that. So that's my little warning. I call these textures, and just before we start, I wanted to show you, again, I'll hold that up there. You can make physical texture on your watercolour if you want to. Hopefully it'll be back to front, but that's crackle paste. So you could use that. It's for acrylic painting, but you could use that with watercolour. And I've got a little sample in my pile here. Shall I hold that up? Makes an amazing sort of like lizard skin, beautiful texture.
It's incredible.
So yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. If you were doing a gecko or a snake, or it would be absolutely wonderful, but in just in backgrounds and in landscapes is gorgeous. So you can do a physical texture, or you can actually, very old bottle, look at that. Yeah, that's called texture medium. It sort of makes your watercolor a bit thick, so you get individual brush marks. So you know, can do that. Or using things like watercolor ground, you can make a very physical, say, texture to paint on. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to do the illusion of texture rather than a physical texture. So but you know, there are options. And I think Jane Betteridge, who does loads of these Arty classes, she uses a lot of these things like the crackle paste in her work, and it's wonderful. So you know, if you like the look of that, do explore it, because it's it just does bring another dimension to your work. Anyway, enough of me wittering on. Why don't we just have a go?
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's. So, other good thing about this is it's brilliant for cleaning up your palettes. So look, I've got an old palette there that I was using. I hate wasting paint, so it's really good just to use any colours you fancy to use them up. What I would say is that some of these techniques work better with some pigments than others. So that's part of the experimenting. You won't know until you've tried, but if it doesn't work, it could just be because you're using a particular pigment. So don't panic, try a different one. And again, just do that. So the one most people know about is using salt. I've got a phthalo blue there that's left over. So I'm going to use that phthalo blue for salt. I've drawn little circles, my little swatches here, and I'm just going to put a wash down and hopefully stay vaguely within the lines. Doesn't matter, for goodness sakes, because this is our little toolbox. It's only a reference sheet. So got lovely phthalo blue, beautiful colour. And then what we have to do is just be a tiny bit patient, because if I put the salt in too early, you just get salty paint, nothing happens. If you put in the salt too late, it just sits on the surface, nothing happens. So you've got to just wait until the shine is starting to go off the surface. So let me lift this up and see if I hold, can you see the shine on that surface there? Hopefully. Yeah. So that's still a tiny bit wet, but then this is just ordinary table salt here. I've got it separate, so I'm not using my cooking salt and contaminating it. And it's literally a little sprinkle into your wash. The darker the paint is that you put on, the more the pattern will show up. And at first, I'm going to lift that up so you can see nothing's happening. and you might be thinking, oh no, and put more salt on. You've just got to be patient. Don't look at it for 2 minutes, and hopefully you'll start to get one of those beautiful, it's like a snowflake pattern. So this, I can just give you my top tip, will not work with something like cadmium red or cadmium yellow, because they're very, or the earth pigments. It doesn't work so well. But on a pigment that's got a very fine particle size, like a phthalo, like oh, nice purple, a dioxin or something like that, it works really well. It also works very well with the quin colours, quin gold, quin rose. So as you do this, you'll start to learn from your experience. Now, I'm going to lift this up again, John, if you can see. And it's actually, oops, sorry, oh, I'm getting my coordination wrong. It's all back to front. Can you just see how you're starting to get tiny little white marks there? And that's just the salt starting to work. You can use rock salt, which is a far bigger crystal. I actually find just really bog standard table salt works better. So let me show you another crystal. If you could see outside of this, the camera, I have got so many lotions and potions here. This is Epsom salts. Again, let me just show you. So Epsom salts, you've got to raid your bathroom cabinet, your medical cabinet. You might use them for sprains, and what does it say? Relieves sprains, bruises and boils. How lovely. I do not have sprains, bruises and boils, you'll be pleased to know. But let me do down here, and I'm going to use that phthalo blue again, just so we can compare it to the table salt. Just go in there. And this is a far bigger crystal, so you just get a slightly different shape mark. So the same thing applies. Let it dry a little, sink into the paper, and just put a little sprinkle on. Leave it for a couple of minutes, and you just get a slightly different mark. So we'll come back to those.
Liz, somebody's asked,
Yes.
is your board flat or slightly tilted?
I've got it on a tiny tilt, probably, I don't know, about 5 degrees, just slightly tilted, just to help me control the water a bit. I think it's usually good to work on a slight tilt. As I say, it just helps you control where the water's going. And again, if we just come back to that first one we did, and I'll come up close, can you see how those little marks are really starting to develop?
Yeah, looking great.
Yeah, so it's lovely, like a little snowflake mark. And I use this quite a lot in, say, if I'm painting a chicken and they've got lovely downy fluff around the tops of their legs, it's brilliant for that. If you were a landscape painter and you wanted to paint a snow scene, it can be fantastic for falling snow. So there are lots of options. This isn't just about animals at all. You can use this in any genre, I guess. Okay. So we're going to come back to those again and just keep looking at them. But let's do the other one that everyone knows about, or not everyone, but most people will have heard of, which is using cling film, which for Americans, that's sarin wrap, or just glad wrap, you call it. We call it cling film. Don't know why, just do. I'm picking out another of my very dirty palettes that I like to use up, and I'm just picking out a purple.
Liz,
and I'm going yeah.
Joy's asked, can you use silica gel crystal also?
No, I've tried that.
Ah.
And it just made a vile smell. It had some sort of bizarre chemical reaction, and it really stank. It wasn't good. So no, it doesn't work. What you can use is you can put like little grains of rice into a damp wash, and that can absorb the water and make little marks. So that would be something to do if you weren't happy about using salt. So here I put in some purple, and then I had a tiny bit of, I think it's probably Quin Rose, and I just thought, oh, I'll mix some colours there because we're having a play. And you need a piece of cling film. Doesn't have to be brilliant quality, just needs to be cling film. Just rip it off. And the important thing is that you don't just plonk it on. Actually think about the direction of the folds you want. So you might want long, thin folds if, say, you were trying to do ripples on water, or you might want to scrunch it into a circle if you wanted to do petals on a flower. So again, just think what you want to do, and then you place it on your wash and move it around until you get the patterns you want. And I'm going to pick that up again, just so that we can come a bit closer. And can you see through the wrap that you're starting to get lovely sort of strange marks? And you can move it around and manipulate it on the paper until you get what you want. Now you have to leave it in place. If I took it off now, all those lovely marks would just disappear. My top tip as well is don't use a hairdryer on it. You know, we use hairdryers to speed up. You just get a snowstorm of little bits of cling film. I've tried it. That was stupid of me. So I'm sharing my experience. You just need to be a little bit patient, and it will take a while to dry because you've not got any evaporation. But you just leave it, and then we'll take it off at the end, and we'll have some beautiful marks. And I say I use this quite a lot on if I want to create wet fur, or the impression of wet fur. Say if I was painting an otter and it just come out of the water, their fur sort of clumps, and this is lovely for doing that. I also use it, say I'm doing painting a wading bird, something like an avocet or a heron, and I want just an impression of water for it to be wading in. It creates beautiful ripples with pretty much zero effort, which is kind of nice because I want to be concentrating on the bird. I don't really care about the puddle it's in, but it needs something.
Liz, we've just got a couple of questions. So,
yes.
Question a bit further back because I've been. What was the crackle stuff called?
The crackle stuff was called crackle paste. I'll hold it up, but of course you're not going to be able to read it because the camera puts it back to front.
Oh no, it can't. No, it only puts it back to front for you. Not for
oh, good. Oh, I assumed it was back to front for you. It's just for me then.
Yeah, it's just for you. Just to confuse you.
Oh, and it does. Lots confuses me. So this one is golden. Yeah. Let me just show you. It literally is a paste, and you put it on with a palette knife, so it's thick. Can you see how thick it is? You put it on and you wait for maybe even 24 hours, and it cracks. The thicker you put it, the bigger the cracks. The big problem is, well, not a problem, just to think about, is that if you're putting on a paper surface, your paper is flexible and it may crack off. So it is actually designed for use on a rigid surface. I mean, it shouldn't be an issue, but it's something to bear in mind. But crackle paste is lovely. Say golden is a very good one. And Pabio do a very good one that's probably cheaper.
Yeah, I think I've heard from some artists that we've hosted, they said that golden paints were very, very like the Rolls Royce of.
Oh, they're gorgeous. Yeah. But that comes at a price.
Yes, exactly. Everything does. And how wet should bringing us back to the cling film or the wrap or whatever, we're having a choice of words today on lots of things.
Okay.
How wet should the paint be for the best results with cling film?
Actually, with cling film, you've got quite a nice margin of error. Whereas with the salt, it's a bit sort of like Goldilocks, a little bit too hot, a little bit too cold. With the cling film, if it's very wet, it just takes longer to dry. If it's too dry, if I put cling film on a dry surface, it would do nothing. So the pigment needs to still be able to move, but actually you've got quite a wide range of error. So wouldn't worry about that. It's just the drying time. But certainly in here, I've got kind of like video lights on, and it's actually quite a nice day. It's going to dry pretty quickly, I reckon.
Yeah, and Jacqueline's asked, do you move cling film around when you first apply? Or I would imagine it depends on the technique that you're wanting to create, really.
Yeah, can you just bung the overhead
Yeah, I will.
camera? Yeah, so this is still wet and I could move it around. So that's what I was showing you, that you get different marks. Don't just sort of accept what, you know, you put it down and think, oh, that's it. Move it around until you like the pattern, because of course you can see through it and see what pattern you've got. And definitely move it to get what you want, because you're in control. And actually, while I'm just up there, look at the salt at the top. Isn't that pretty? Yeah. That's started to work really nicely. And the Epsom salts at the bottom, if you can see those, it's a lot more circular as a mark. So it's just the sort of how it absorbs water. That's table salt, and that's Epsom salts. So you can just see slightly different texture and marks you can get. Yeah. Oh, and just to say, sugar does not work. Just in case anyone was thinking about that, you just get really sticky paint. Because guess what? I've tried. Yeah, not good. Okay, so as I say, salt and cling film are ones that most people start with, but something that could be quite nice. I'm going to come over here. Let's use a different colour. This is, I think that's just neutral tint I've got in there. It's just a grey, but I'll put it on. So I'm going to put my swatch. So this, again, just doesn't matter what colour you choose. With the salt it matters, but with bubble wrap, with the cling film, doesn't matter. So I'm just going to put that there, and I'm going to find a piece of bubble wrap, and I'm going to put that in my wash. See, it does, I find you need to kind of weight it down to get the best. So I might put a tube of paint, or that's a pot of stuff. Let me show you. I've got one. This is really Blue Peter, you know, one I prepared earlier. Let me show you what it looks like. She says, oh no, where is it? I've got so many bits and bobs here. And it's disappeared. It's probably fallen on the floor. Bother.
For our American friends out there, Blue Peter is this little man who always used to paint himself blue. No, I'm pulling your leg. It was a children's program where they did lots of little things, didn't they? Lots of creative things, and a really fun program. And then you could win a Blue Peter badge that are still accepted in various museums, zoos, etc. for free entry if you won your Blue Peter badge. Yeah.
I still haven't found it. It obviously has fallen down. But yes, they always used to say, oh, you know, when they were doing something creative, oh, here's one I did earlier. And it would always be perfect, even if they made a total mess of it. So anyway, I'll come back to that one.
We've got another, it's not a question actually, but it's about cling film. So yeah. Pat said that she lives in a humid climate in North Carolina. It can take 24 hours for cling wrap to dry to texture your desire.
Wow.
Don't move before you think it's dry, or the effect will not be there. So she was just saying that as a comment. So it depends on the climate that you're painting in, I would imagine.
Well, always does, yes. And actually it's a really humid afternoon here. It feels like we're going to have a thunderstorm, but yeah, the atmospherics always affect how your watercolor dries. Just a fact of life. And the other thing with the salt, we need to, once it's totally dry, we need to take the salt off, because otherwise it will absorb water from the atmosphere and almost like re-wet your painting, which is really weird. So you do need to, right at the end, when it's all nice and dry, just take your thumbnail and scrape off the crystals, so that you don't end up, as I say, reabsorbing, especially if you live in a really humid area. You would end up, with soggy painting, and you think, oh, what's going on here? It's very odd.
Now we had quite a funny comment here from Jan. So she didn't have Epsom salts, so she used citric acid powder, and she said it's created amazing results, except it smells like a sewer.
I've got some citric acid in the kitchen. I have never tried that. I shall be doing that afterwards.
There we go.
I would just be a little concerned because, of course, it's acid, and what it would do to your paper surface.
Yeah, good point.
You know, with time, don't know. And citric. I mean, I use citric acid when I'm making elderflower cordial, so I use it for cooking. But I'd never thought to put it in my paintings. You see, that's what's such fun. You know, you have a play and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to play. So actually by thinking, oh, does this work? No or yes. You may discover something that people have never tried. So Jan, well done. And you shouldn't have said it out loud because now everyone's going to go and have a go. You could have been the only person in the country to do that. But now, sorry. We're all going to be doing that.
Everyone's homes are going to be smelling like sewers all across the country.
Well, it should smell sort of lemony, citric acid, but unless you've actually got a chemical reaction.
Maybe.
Who knows? Exciting. So just coming back to my bubble wrap, what you'll do is get lots of little round marks. And what I've used it for, and what I was trying to find to show you, and I'm so sorry, I'll put it on Facebook later, is I've used it for making honeycomb. So I've been painting a little honeybee, and I couldn't really be bothered to paint all those hexagons for the honeycomb. But by using this texture, it gave me sort of the impression of that behind it and allowed me to concentrate on my bee. So that's been a really nice use of the texture. And as I say, if I may, John, I'll put that on the Facebook page when I actually find it.
Yes, yeah, no, that's fine.
Blown away.
That's fine. We've had Esther say that she's used dissolvable vitamin D scraped off with a scalpel.
And what did that do?
Oh, I don't know. But well, Esther, just tell us what happened.
Okay, you're all fine.
You don't live in Beirut at all, do you? No, I don't want to. Yeah, no, so that's interesting. And a good tip this is from Susie, a good tip about totally removing salt as it gets really humid here in Queensland. Oh, it's a question. Is there a good tip about removing salt as it gets really humid here in Queensland?
Yeah, the tip is wait till it is absolutely dry. And then I say literally thumbnail is the easiest thing and just scrape it off and then that's fine. That's all you need. But if I tried to scrape it off now, mine is still damp and I'd just smudge it, but just let it dry, scrape it off and you'll be fine.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
So
shall we proceed with our experiments?
Linda said, we're getting this is a very interactive art class and I don't know, we're going to be quite pushed for time, I think, if we're not careful. But Linda said, thing is, I love all these comments, so it's difficult to No, I do have a masterclass. Tim Fisher's masterclass is coming up at 3:30. Okay. I've used dishwasher rinse aid with watercolor, loved the effect, but found that it caused the paint to stain right through the paper. 300 grams onto the underneath sheet in my block. What did I do wrong? Well,
funnily enough, we're coming on to dishwasher rinse aid, so we'll do that in a second.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, see, at least I'm on that. Vitamin
ahead
D,
of the curve. Ahead of the curve.
D, no, I didn't do that, but yeah, at least I can do that. So let's do the next one. We're going to just move my little bits out of the way there. I'm just putting a very pale colour on here, but I thought rather than just putting clean water, because you wouldn't be able to see the clean water on your screen. Actually, that's not as pale as I thought it was going to be. And this is called colour sanding. If you use watercolour pencils, and they can be really nasty, cheap watercolour pencils. So these are really quite unpleasant. I wouldn't ever use them to draw or paint with because they've just not got a huge amount of pigment in. But a little bit of sandpaper, And then you can sand your pencil and you get a beautiful speckled effect. And I'm going to again, oops, how am I going to do that? I'm going to lift that up just so you can see. Can you see tiny speckles? I actually did it quite heavily here, but tiny speckles there, which you couldn't do by splattering. So colour sanding is beautiful. And I do have one I prepared earlier here. So this is just a little very quick nest with a couple of eggs in. And you know how eggs, particularly things like robin eggs, have got tiny speckles on. Well, colour sanding is just perfect for something like that. It's beautiful, and it's a really good way of using up cheap as chips watercolour pencils. And of course, you can use multiple colours. What's that? That's a pink. And you could just get lovely little speckles. It has to be wet first, because if you just do that sanding the colour onto dry paper, it's just dust and it'll blow away. If it's very wet, the little specks of colour will start to spread and dissolve, which is not a problem, but it's just a bit different. If it's damp, you'll get very individual specks. So again, being aware of the wetness and the dampness of your paper is important.
We've got a couple of more questions.
Good. This is great.
So Karen said, can you use coloured mica powder into a wash? I'm going to try that soon, but wondered if you had any advice.
You can. The effect, I mean, it's a bit like almost using sort of brusho type. If you come across brusho, which are tiny ink crystals that when you drop into a wash, the colours explode out. Or if you've come across the aqua bronzes, which are metallic powders, and then you sprinkle them into a wash, again, they sort of spread out in the wash. So I think it will be like that. Okay. But again, try it and come back and tell us all, because until you've experimented, you don't know whether it's going to smell like a sewer or be beautiful. And we all need to have a spirit of adventure to grow as artists. You know, what's the worst can happen? It's a piece of paper. You know. Exactly.
Yeah. And we've got Rishi with her hand up. So hello, Rishi.
Hello.
I'm going to be quick because I think I think it's going to run a bit, but it's wait, yeah. So I just use the sandpaper, and the sandpaper, you know, the bits of sandpaper, the sandpaper just come off and go into the paint.
Well, you have now got a very unique texture. That's you're probably using quite a rough sandpaper, because the rougher ones have got bigger bits of sand. So maybe next time just try a slightly smoother sandpaper. I mean, this does say it's coarse. Sorry, let me put that under there. It does say it's coarse, but maybe yours is just a bit rough. I wouldn't worry about it, because once your paint's dry, it'll just scrape off. You use your thumbnail and just scrape it off, you'll be fine. The watercolour pencil won't scrape off because it's slightly dissolved into the wash, but if there are little bits of sand, that's fine, don't worry.
Are you enjoying all the experimentation, Rishi?
Yeah, I've just done my colouring pencils. They have dissolved as you because I did a bit early, but it does look like they look a bit like a spice if they're like warm colours.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, and it's lovely if they slightly dissolve. Again, it could be lovely for markings on an animal, you know, whatever. So you just with experience, you'll know how wet it should be to get them either to be very distinct or to get them softer. So yeah,
I think Tim Fisher did this one.
Oh well, nothing's new. yeah.
I mean, he did the same technique, but he used like a knife instead of sandpaper.
That's a good point. You can use a scalpel and you get far bigger flakes of the pigment, so you'll get bigger marks. So yes, you're right. I mean, you can do it with a scalpel, or even if you've sharpened your watercolour pencil, don't throw the sharpenings away, save that as a little powder and use it. So yeah, you can do that.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jan said she's just used Derwent graphite grated with a nutmeg grater on the wash. Lovely effect.
Brilliant, because you can get graphite powder, you can get charcoal powder, and you could use that in the same way. So that's prepared powder. But yeah, absolutely, you could use graphite and scrape it off with a scalpel or something, and it super effect.
Now, if this is a good time, I'm going to interject and just have and force a halfway break, if that's okay.
Yep.
Because we're getting a lot of interaction on this, which is fantastic. But I've got a feeling time is going to run on. However, don't be alarmed, because I've just been thinking about this, because I can see all the different circles on Liz's page. I don't know whether we're going to be able to cover all of them, but we may have the opportunity, I'm sure she'll be open to it, of inviting her back at a later date to kind of complete the page, which I think might be a good, because there's been an awful lot of interaction here, which I think has been fantastic. I'm just looking at Liz's face as I'm talking just to see whether
happy smiley face.
Yes, good smiley face. So that might be a really good option. So let's just have a little halfway break now, just to talk about what's coming up and also what's happened, because at this time last week our Arty class featured Ian Fenley, who has got an incredible Instagram following. I know, Liz, you've done a class of Ian's as well, and he's got about 70,000 Instagram followers. He's all over the place, and a really renowned urban sketcher is the term, I guess, who ran through drawing the Charles Bridge in Prague, and we had a great time. We had some amazing pictures on our Facebook page, and we'll be talking about that towards the end of this class and review the art sent in. For now, I'd like Liz to say a few words about her Arty masterclass / whatever we're going to. I've had a couple of other comments actually that people mentioned, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So Liz, what fun lies in store for your Arty masterclass on the 20th of August?
Well, where shall I show this? I hope you will be able to join me to paint this rather gorgeous stag. Actually, shall I put that?
Yeah, let's put it on
there. That might be easier rather than sort of me sticking my head around it. Yeah. So this is what I plan to do with you, and to use some of the techniques of today. So if you look, for example, here we've got some salt texture. I'm going to come on to spraying and moving paint around, and we've got that there. We've got splatters and some dry brushing on his antlers. So the idea is that we will do this rather gorgeous stag. I put red on because he's a red stag, but playing with the colours, having great fun with the colours, but putting some of these texturing techniques into context in a painting. That's what I would love to do.
That's fantastic. And that's why you decided in this Arty class to actually focus on some of the techniques, because some of these things we're going to be bringing them all together in this painting.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the stag is lovely anyway as a subject matter, but sometimes it's fun to think, how can I do it differently? Because so many people have painted stags, but how can we do it a little bit differently and bring in lots of variety to bring life and energy to this stag? So that's what I would like to do. That's
brilliant, and really looking forward to that one. It'll be a fantastic event. And what I'll do, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see below in the description a link to Liz's shop, so you can click on that and you can book your place on that masterclass, that live webinar. And I'll also put the link here in this Arty class as well in the chat feature in a few minutes.
Brilliant.
So thank you. That sounds fantastic. Now, at the beginning, I asked everybody, sorry to interject here, Liz, I'm just hijacking this Arty class a little bit. I was talking about, because we're trying to make this decision on what to call our masterclasses, whether we keep it with masterclasses, whether we decide not to, whatever. And so we've had some other thoughts. We also had some winners from when I asked the question before, but I'm going to just now ask the same question, but this time a few other thoughts. So you should have that on your thing now. So which ones do you feel are, out of these, sum up the it's like an extended Arty class, and we don't want to alienate people to where they think, oh, masterclass, it might be a bit too, it might be more professional. We want to try and make it appealing to everybody, because that's what it is. It just is more time doing what we all enjoy doing in these Arty classes. So it'd be really interesting to get your feedback on which options you feel, which title or term you feel is the right thing. Brilliant. Thank you for that. That is really good feedback again. It's always good to have good feedback on these sort of things. It helps with our decision making. So thank you, guys. We've had some other comments, Liz, from people. Cindy Wong has said, if I don't have watercolor pencil, what else can I use?
Well, it really needs to be watercolor pencil for that technique, just because it's got to slightly dissolve to stick on the surface. If you used ordinary sort of coloring pencils, they're actually wax based, so they wouldn't stick in that way. So when it was dry, the kind of dust would just blow off. I mean, you could do a very fine splatter. If you need tiny little marks, you could use something like a toothbrush and a very fine splatter. It's slightly different, but it would give you a very fine mark. So that could be an alternative. But as I say, something like just an ordinary colouring pencil wouldn't work. Sorry. So okay. You can get watercolour pencils incredibly cheaply, because, as I say, these are horrible quality. I shouldn't be that rude, just on the brand, when I get sued for defamation. They are horrible quality. It was £4 UK pounds for 15 pencils, so they were pretty cheap. And they're great for this, but not for anything else.
Yeah. There's lots of other questions. So hand sanitizer gel acts like bleach was.
Yeah, because
whether that's a question or whether it's a statement, but it looks like a statement.
Because of the alcohol content, because hand sanitizer gel is something like 70–80% alcohol. So in fact, that was the next one I was going to show you, was what sort of alcohol or dishwasher rinse aid works in the same way, what that looks like. So yeah, I haven't used hand gel because obviously it was so precious. Only a little while ago, we were all so desperate to get hold of it. I wouldn't use it on my painting.
Yeah. And Debbie from Texas, who she said today is in Florida, actually. She said chalk pastels worked for me in the past.
Oh yeah, so I mean pastels. So yes, you say chalk rather than the oil pastels. They do mix very nicely with watercolor. Just generally, I sometimes paint watercolor and then put pastel over the top. So yeah, that might well work in the same sort of grated way. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, good point.
So and then we've had, Anne has said, can you show us the cling film bubble wrap results? Is that possible?
I'm just not to the bubble wrap. Okay, so I've just lifted that up and it's still really wet. I am going to find my bubble wrap picture, and I say I promise I'll put it on the Arty Facebook page if that's okay, and then you can see let me lift this. I think, oh yeah, look, so the cling film is okay. I can show you it's not dry, but can you see there, these beautiful marks? You could use it for like rock formations, as say ripples in water. So that's still damp, but it's okay, it's not gone away. Whereas if I take this off, it's just got puddles. That's not going to work. But can you see that? And coming back to the salt, that's almost dry. And then coming back to my Epsom salts, can you see how it's just far more circular, the mark?
Yeah.
So yeah. And I mean, you saying we're not going to get through all these circles.
I've actually
got
30 because everybody's getting
no, we're not.
And even Kathleen's got a hand up. I'll bring her in. So I think everybody, I know a lot of you are saying, oh, please can we cover everything? But I think, to be honest, we're just, from the start, I kind of felt we just weren't going to be able to cover all those different circles.
And also I edited, I could give you about 35 40 of different techniques, so I've just tried to pick out a few. This was my original list where I started writing down all my different ideas, so no, we can't, but hopefully what you'll do is have the spirit of adventure of, I don't need Liz, I can do this. What happens here? What happens there? You know, so you know, at least we've made a start together.
Yeah, I promise we will do a part 2 of this.
Okay, cool.
At another point, because I think that will be really good. You'll all want that anyway, and it's been really productive to see all those sort of things. So I think that will be well worthwhile. I'll bring Kathleen in, Liz, because she's had a hand up for a while. Hi, Kathleen. You may need to unmute.
Right.
Oh, there's a bit of echo. I don't know whether you've got more than one device on, but if so.
Actually, my point has been covered. It was pastels.
Pastels. Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
covered.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. I think
That was spooky.
more than one device on, I think. Anne's got her hand up as well. Let me just bring Anne in. Hello, Anne. You're on mute. Yeah.
Yep.
Hello.
These techniques, I would just like to extend things a bit more. When we use the sanding on the sandpaper and the speckle effect and the colour, and it just seems as though things explode. Have we got anything that could be even more explosive?
Oh yes, if you want super explosive, you need to get Brusho. So Brusho, little like ink crystals almost, and if you put them into a wash, literally it's fireworks. It's amazing, but it's different from. It's not pure watercolor, but they are beautiful. I'd love to do a Brusho session sometime, John, because they are a whole pile of fun. But you'd need to have Brusho. But if
that was great.
Google Brusho, and I say if you want explosion, you can either put it dry on your paper and then spritz it with water, and it's fireworks. It's just crazy. Yeah,
love to experience that.
Yeah. You'll love it. Or just go onto YouTube and Google Brusho, and you'll be wowed. It's lovely.
Whoa, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Brilliant. I know that there's a little bit of frustration that we haven't covered as much as we were hoping to cover, but I think, to be honest, it is good to have people's feedback in the class, because then we get other ideas and other thoughts and other feedback which Liz can then expand on. So nothing's really wasted. So I hope everybody's been enjoying all the different things, because I know, and obviously if we have a part 2, it'll be fantastic to go through those other points as well. Anne's got her hand up. Let me just oh no, Anne's just been on, obviously. Linda's got her hand up. I'll just bring Linda in. Linda, you need to unmute, I think.
Yes, I have done. I just wanted to say the class is really, really interesting. Perhaps a suggestion might be if you say that we can have a Q&A at the end of it, and then perhaps we might have seen a few more of the techniques. And then obviously we can just make a little note of any questions we've got, and perhaps have a Q&A at the end, because I think we've only managed to get through about 4.
Well, the problem is with this, Linda, is that we have Q&A open on every session that we have, and quite most of the time we don't get that many people interacting with things. They're kind of painting along, and you only really know from time to time you have one that's really super interactive like this, and you don't really know until we start the session. So it's really difficult to judge that, but obviously this is really involving, and everybody wants to throw in their own thoughts, and that's why I think it'd be worth doing this in a 2-part Arty class, or maybe we could even consider doing a masterclass on it. I mean, I could imagine that, you know, it could almost be a huge thing, but I think we'll do it as a free Arty class, but we'll do 2 parts, and we can kind of expand on that, and I'll kind of keep you up to date with when that date is. I'll talk to Liz and we'll try and work something out.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I just thought if it was mentioned at the beginning that we could have a Q&A at the end, it might have meant we could have got through a little bit more. But thank you anyway for
No
what
problem.
you have seen. It's been really good.
Yeah, no, it's been really informative, hasn't it? Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Brilliant. Okay, so now I'm conscious that I've got a masterclass I've got to start in about 5 minutes, but I also wanted to cover Ian Fennelly's thing as well. Liz, okay, and we got all these questions funny. Anyway, so I'm glad everybody's been really. What would be fantastic? We've got a link to the Facebook post relating to this session. So what would be fantastic is if you can just experiment with loads of stuff and put it on that Facebook post. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a link at the bottom to the Facebook post as well. Or if you click on the previous Arty classes on our thing, you'll find this one today, and you can go through to the Facebook post there, or just search for Shopkeep Arty on Facebook. And put your experiments, put your thoughts, any kind of different materials that you use, things like that. And I'm sure Liz will have a look at some of them and make the odd comment and things like that. And we can use that to inform our part 2 of this Arty class at some point as well. So that would be really, really useful to get that feedback. So I said that I was going to cover a little bit of the Ian Fennelly Arty class that we did the other week, because he's got a masterclass coming up as well. And I can share with you my screen on that. So let me just go to that Facebook post, wherever it is. I think it is here. There we go. And so these were all the bridges and everything from that other artists did. So Chris's there, which looked amazing. Caroline, Cindy, Sheila, just some really amazing interpretations of the Charles Bridge in Prague. So these were some really, really great. Now, normally I invite the artist back, but obviously is so busy at the moment, and I think actually he was on holiday this week, so I didn't really want to say, can you cut your holiday short? However, we have had some feedback from him, and he has chosen a winner. He said actually it was really, really difficult to pick one, and I know it always is, but he has chosen Cindy Wong. And his comment was that he loved the colours of the bridge reflecting the water, and also the shadow under the arch. But he said it was really difficult to pick. But well done, Cindy, for that. And I just created a little post there, and I'll just press that and submit it. So thank you very much for that. And obviously Ian's masterclass is coming up as well as Liz's. You can find all that on the Arty class page. We've had so much response to this one today. It's been fantastic, and there's so many different ideas, which has been great. We've got thanks Liz for a fabulous fun workshop from Liz. Liz is so inspiring from Anne. Jan's a bit disappointed that there's only 3 or 4 samples, but hopefully we'll be able to cover more, Jan, in the next one. Many more of these, says Anne. Really love it. Okay, thank you all. It's brilliant as it is. Watching techniques live, is better than Q&A when time is limited. So that's from Joy. Good suggestions by others, worth keeping at least 5 to 10 minutes for that. So lots of comments and thoughts as well. So thank you very much. Thank you. Great session from Linda. Thanks, Liz, from Jill. Love the idea of these classes and look forward to the Stag Masterclass. So some great feedback. Anne's got her hand up as well. Hello, Anne. Do you want to say something? You're on mute. Yep, hello.
An absolutely fantastic session. I would love a continuation of this. I have learnt so much, and I would love to learn more.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Anne. I know it's a really difficult and fine balance trying to get all the content and all the things into such a short space of time, but we are trying our best, free twice a week. so thank you very much for your positive feedback. That's really great. Thank you very much.
I love it.
Thank you, thank you. So great. So again, another successful Arty class, Liz, and I loved your Curious Cow, the last one. If anyone wants to go and see that, you can purchase the video on Liz's shop, and you can do that via Shopkeep Arty as well. And it's a really, you can also see some of the cows that people created. We've put that in the, if you click on previous masterclass and click on the Curious Cow, you can see all the different cows that people came up with in that masterclass. It just gives you an idea of the sort of things that were happening in the class and what you can create from it. So it's well worth watching that if you get the opportunity. And obviously we're moving on to stags in a couple of weeks, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, 20th.
Yeah,
yeah.
Perfect. So until then, and I'm obviously, and if any of you are doing Tim Fisher's masterclass, that's going to be starting in half an hour. So until I see you in 30 minutes, it's bye-bye from me. And also, bye-bye
Bye from me.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Take care.